Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining the meeting. I wanted to make a couple of quick announcements before we begin. As shown on the slide here, the comment period will be open via email or phone until August 12th. Also, we have noticed that there may be a difference in sound quality depending on your device. Therefore, we recommend using some sort of headphones or earbuds for an optimal experience. Please keep in mind that tonight's meeting is being recorded. It will be posted to the project website. Please check out the website after the meeting to view the presentation again, as well to participate in a survey pertaining to tonight's event. For those of you listening on the phone, that website is http://portal, portal.ct.gov/DOT Stafford, Stafford 134-148. Welcome to the virtual public informational meeting for state project number 134148. My name is Mike Cherpak and I serve as the design project manager for this proposal. I hope everyone is staying healthy and staying safe. We appreciate your willingness and flexibility to attend this meeting in this venue. The goals of tonight's meeting are as follows. First, I'll introduce you to the design team. That'll include front office leadership and designers. Next, I'd like to go over the virtual platform and how you'll be able to interact with the design team, ask questions, and get answers. The designers will provide a formal presentation that'll provide some background on the project location, it'll define what the purpose and need of the project is, and they'll go over the design plans. These plans are only about 30% complete, and your input at tonight's meeting will shape how this project progresses. Lastly, we will have a live question and answer session. More on how this will work later. I mentioned earlier introducing the project team. We've been regularly communicating with the town of Stafford, including First Selectman Mary Minna. So before we go any further, I'd like to allow First Selectman Minna to say a few words.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for attending this informational meeting regarding the modern roundabout being designed and constructed by the State of Connecticut Department of Transportation. This will be in front of the Warren Memorial Town Hall, which is at the intersection of Route 190 and Route 32, which is our main street. I'm sure you've all noticed the yellow markings that DOT added a few months ago. That's been done to simulate how the flow of traffic should be after construction. It's also given them a chance to monitor any changes or updates to their plan. Since DOT introduced the markings around the fountain and in the yield areas, we've seen a much smoother flow of traffic when cars stay in their proper lanes. The informational meeting this evening is so that DOT can let everyone know where they are in the design phase of the project and to give the residents the chance to see what their plan will look like. This is the time for residents to ask questions, give comments, suggestions, etc., before they finish the design of the project. So I want to thank DOT for including us in this phase and for taking the time to have this meeting to give our residents the opportunity to provide input. Thank you.
Thank you, First Selectman Minna. It's been a pleasure working with you and your team. The other members of the design team are shown here. Myself, Mike Cherpak, in the middle of the screen, will serve as the design project manager. Our highway leadership group consisting of our principal engineer, Matthew Vale, and our unit manager, Mike Calabrese. Other presenters tonight include project engineer Nick Ivanoff and designer Hasib Ahmad. Dennis McDonald is here tonight to discuss the rights-of-way process and to provide a brief presentation, and we'll answer any questions that are related. There will be 3 ways to communicate and interact with the design team: project email, phone, and MS Live event chat. This way, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns during or after the meeting, you've got a way to get them to us. We'll do our best to respond as quickly as we can. The project email is dotproject, PROJECT, 134-148 at ct.gov. The phone number to leave us a voicemail is 860-944-1111. All questions, comments, concerns, and hopefully some support will be logged into the MS Teams Live event chat. meaning if you call in and leave us a voicemail or send us an email, we will transcribe that call into the event chat and read it aloud. An answer will follow. For those of you using the MS Teams live event to view this meeting tonight, I hope you can find the question and answer area in the dialog box, which looks much like the graphic shown below. The following video details how to access the question and answer dialog box.
If you are viewing through Microsoft Teams, you can post a question or comment by clicking the little question mark to the top right of the presentation window and clicking the My Questions tab or the Ask a Question button. You then have an option to enter your name and type your question into the Ask a Question field. Click the checkbox to post anonymously, then click the double arrow or hit Enter to post a question. Click Featured to view announcements and attendee questions. You may experience a delay before your own sent question is posted. You can exit the questions window by clicking X and can return to it at any time by clicking the Show Q&A question mark. Click the My Questions tab to post another question or hit X to close the window again. To maximize the presentation window, click the arrow to the bottom right of the presentation window and click the arrow again to reduce the window size.
And one last housekeeping note. The department strives to achieve a fair, balanced, and thorough approach to its public outreach. We all at Connecticut DOT take civil rights matters very seriously and believe that no person shall, on the basis of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this project. More information on this is available in the link provided on the slide or at the project website.
Thank you, Mike. Good evening, everybody. My name is Nick Ivanoff, and I am a project engineer in the Highway Design Unit from the Department of Transportation. I'm going to talk a little bit about the configuration of the existing rotary and the purpose and need of the improvements we're proposing. This project is located in the Stafford Springs area of the town of Stafford. The existing rotary is in front of Town Hall at the intersection of Main Street, Route 32 and 190, River Road, Route 32, Furnace Avenue, and East Main Street, Route 190. River Road, Main Street, and East Main Street are arterial roads with higher volumes of traffic. Main Street sees approximately 5,900 vehicles per day. River Road and East Street both see approximately 4,700 vehicles per day. Furnace Avenue to the north is a collector street with 2,300 vehicles per day. Taking a look at our project site, on-street parking is present throughout both sides of Main Street. There are 2 rail crossings at Spring Street and River Road, and there is a historic decorative fountain present in the middle of the intersection. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to talk about some of the key differences between a rotary and a roundabout. The image on the left is of a rotary, and the image on the right is the same intersection modernized into a roundabout. You probably immediately notice the presence of the concrete truck's apron in the center of the roundabout. This narrows the pavement width to control speeds in the circulatory roadway while still permitting access to larger vehicles by allowing the trailer to ride up onto the apron. Next, you probably noticed the pedestrian accommodations, including sidewalks, crosswalks, and the refuge areas located within the splitter islands. Speaking of the splitter islands, their purpose is to provide channelization and traffic calming into the circulatory roadway. The rotary configuration isn't doing much for the driver, but the raised splitter islands of the roundabout and 6-inch curbing provide the necessary geometry to channelize and decelerate vehicles on their approach and set up one of the most important factors: deflection. The fastest path through both intersections is in most cases the through movement. The rotary configuration does not offer much in the way of deflection and is very much a straight shot through the roundabout, allowing for dangerously high speeds. Should the south-north driver fail to yield to the west-east driver, a crash here could be fatal and was one of the main reasons for modernizing this rotary. The modern roundabout, however, has reverse curves, which forces the drivers to decelerate and proceed through the intersection at a slower, more controlled speed. If we take a look and compare the two movements, we can see that there are only 2 curbs in the rotary, and there are 5 curbs in the roundabout. Additionally, drivers in the roundabout are approaching closer to the center of the circle, and on the rotary, they're approaching more from the side, again allowing those high speeds. Lastly, drivers on the approach legs of the roundabout yield to drivers in the circulatory roadway. The dashed lines illustrate the separation between the approach leg and the circulatory roadway. Though this is true in both intersections, the roundabout's point of yield is more apparent and further illustrates the point behind which vehicles are required to yield. From the driver's perspective, we can see how the yield signs are placed at the same point as the pavement markings. Coming back to the Stafford roundabout, we'll look at the issues of this rotary configuration one leg at a time. However, we should keep in mind that the example we just looked at was in a high-speed rural environment, where our location is in a low-speed urban environment. Though the goals are the same, the treatments are different, as roundabout design is not a one-size-fits-all solution. So starting on River Road, we can immediately see that there is no deflection on this approach. It is very much a straight-through movement. Taking a closer look, there is no splitter island present to guide users into the circulatory roadway. The location of the white dashed line with respect to the location of the yield signs decreases the sign's visibility and effectiveness. This creates driver confusion. A driver who is approaching on River Road may fail to yield due to the low visibility of the sign, or the driver who is already in the circulatory roadway may unexpectedly stop in the roundabout, assuming the entering driver will not yield, possibly causing a rear-end crash. From the driver's perspective, no splitter island is present, and we can see the discrepancy between the location of the yield sign and the actual point of yield. On Main Street, we have some slight deflection. However, only a painted splitter island is present, and the location of the yield sign is in front of the police building, almost 50 feet from the actual point of yield. Lastly, the lack of channelization has created a conflict with the roof of the police building, and less experienced drivers of large commercial vehicles have actually struck the roof. From the driver's perspective, note the location of the yield sign. Is it directing drivers to yield to the pedestrians at the crosswalk or to circulating traffic at the intersection? The reality is that it's both, but it's not being clearly communicated to the driver. This is the corner of the police building where the structural modifications were required and a safety bollard was installed to prevent future damage to the building. It's been struck a few times as well. Lastly, let's look at the approach from East Main Street and Furnace Avenue. This approach is better than the other 2 legs of the intersection. A small splitter island is present, yield signs are in the proper location, and the deflection isn't too bad either, but there's still room for improvement. A look at the crash history in our project limits revealed that there were 30 crashes and 2 injuries which occurred over a 3-year period. 5 were angle crashes or T-bones, 10 side swipes, 14 rear ends, and 1 pedestrian was struck by a vehicle crossing Main Street. I mentioned before that there were 2 rail crossings present in the project limits, and we will be upgrading the railroad warning devices at River Road with our project. However, since coordination with railroad entities is a lengthy process and our preliminary roadway design was nearly complete, the department saw the opportunity to provide line striping as an immediate temporary solution to the deficiencies of the rotary. This was installed in August of 2020, and it allowed us in design to see how well roundabout geometry would perform, or if there were any changes to consider for a more permanent solution. In our initial assessments, the line striping performs well, but the issue of driver compliance with the line striping still remains. It's easy to drive over a painted line instead of a curb. Therefore, there's still need for a more permanent solution. I will now turn the presentation over to the project's designer to discuss what we are proposing.
Thank you for the introduction, Nick. My name is Hasib Ahmed, and I am the project designer. I will take you through some of the changes that we are proposing. This here is a color plan that shows the new roundabout in place of the rotary. Right off the bat, you can tell that we are installing horizontal curves on Main Street and River Road. This is a zoomed in picture of the roundabout. You can see that we are installing splitter islands on all three approaches and a truck apron at the center of the roundabout. With the combination of the horizontal curves, the splitter island, and the truck apron, we're able to slow vehicles down as they approach the roundabout. If you remember from existing, it was a straight line from River Road to Furnace Avenue, but with this combination, it's not as much of a straight line anymore. One of the impacts associated with installing a splitter island on River Road is that we'll have to modify the town hall's driveway. On the left, you can see the existing layout of the driveway. It's an entrance and an exit separated by an island. In the proposed layout, we'll have to tighten that up and make it into a bi-directional driveway. Some additional changes include adding a channelization island in front of the police building. This helps us out in 4 ways. Number 1, it enforces the horizontal curve on Main Street and helps people slow down as they approach the roundabout. Number 2, it gives police a parking area in front of the police building. A portion of the island will be mountable to allow police vehicles to exit the parking area without having to wait in a queue. Number 3, the island gives us a proper location to install a yield sign. If you remember from existing, the yield sign was located much further back. But now, with the installation of the island, the yield sign can be placed near the yield point. And finally, number 4, the island pushes vehicles and trucks away from the police building. This should prevent the roof of the police building from getting hit by trucks. We are also proposing to install a parking lot at this location. We are proposing to extend a few curb lines to help improve the geometry of the roundabout. The parking lot is being installed to help mitigate parking loss. Approximately 11 parking spots will be able to fit in this location. This is a larger color plan that shows some more changes. We will be adding bump outs on Main Street. I will be going over bump outs in greater detail in just a few minutes. We are extending the curb line at these locations. This enforces the geometry of the roundabout and pushes vehicles away from pedestrians. It also gives pedestrians more room to walk around. Lastly, we are connecting the sidewalk from the town hall to the gas station just south of the bridge. We will be retrofitting the existing bridge with new sidewalk. I wanted to mention that there is a separate project in design to upgrade the railroad crossing equipment at Spring Street. They are also looking at replacing the existing flashing beacon with a full signal as an alternative. The full signal alternative has been analyzed and will not have any impact to the roundabout operations. The state will coordinate with the town as this separate project moves through the design phase. Now I'll take a few minutes and talk about some of the benefits of having bump outs. We are proposing to install bump outs on Main Street. On the right, you can see the pedestrian is standing as if there was no bump out. The driver will have a difficult time seeing the pedestrian because the parked cars on the side of the road are obstructing the driver's sightline. The pedestrian will also have a difficult time seeing the oncoming cars because the pedestrian sight triangle is obstructed by the parked cars. It is very difficult to see behind the cars at that angle. In the case of no bump outs, the pedestrian would have a longer crossing distance. This means that the driver would also have a long wait time. Once the bump outs are installed, the pedestrian is much more closer to the travel lane. This makes it easier for the drivers to see the pedestrians. The parked cars are not obstructing the view. It is also much easier for the pedestrian to see the roadway. The increase in roadway visibility makes the pedestrian feel more safe. With the installation of the bump outs, the crossing distance becomes shorter. This also helps the driver because now there is a shorter waiting time. Now I'll talk about the typical sections that we are using for this project. First, let me explain what a typical section is. A typical section is when we take a slice out of the roadway structure and we examine it as if we were standing in front of the slice. These sections help us in designing the roadway elements, such as shoulders, travel lanes, curbing, etc. They also help us see where the stormwater is draining. The first section that we will be looking at is the typical section for the roundabout. We will be taking a slice out of the roundabout where the yellow line is. We will be viewing the slice as if we were looking north. Here you can see the typical section for the roundabout. We are proposing a 12 to 18 foot truck apron, followed by an 18-foot travel lane and a 2-foot shoulder. For Main Street, we will be slicing the roadway here. We will look at the slice as if we were looking east. The typical section for Main Street, there is 9 feet of on-street parking, followed by 2 12-foot travel lanes and 10 feet of on-street parking on the right side. As I mentioned previously, we will be extending the curb line to create a better geometry for the roundabout. These are the areas that will require some sort of hardscape. We are proposing to use stamped concrete. The new stamped concrete should match the pattern and color used in the existing hardscaped areas. Rights-of-way coordination will continue for this project, and we are still evaluating the rights-of-way impacts. This is an example of one minor impact. Here we have the property line for the police station highlighted as the blue dashed line. Here you can see a small portion of the curbing is crossing over the property line. Much of the project is being built within the existing footprint of the intersection, and therefore, we do not expect any significant acquisitions. Dennis McDonald is here from our rights-of-way office, and he will explain the rights-of-way process. Dennis?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dennis McDonald, and I'm a representative from the Connecticut Department of Transportation, Division of Rights-of-Way. I'm just going to provide a brief overview of the right-of-way process. So the function of the Division of Rights-of-Way is to acquire all property and property rights necessary for the project. This is done in accordance with Connecticut General Statute Section 13A73, 13A90AE, and the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Policies Act of 1970 as amended. Your typical right-of-way impacts include partial acquisitions, easements, and rights. Impacts are subject to change as the design progresses, but this gives a general idea of typical property impacts. Once property impacts have been established, each impacted property owner will receive a letter of intent to acquire along with a property acquisition map. The letter essentially initiates the right-of-way process, and the map provides a detailed overview of the specific right-of-way impacts. Soon after the letter is received, evaluation process will take place, and once a value has been established, each impacted property owner will receive a written offer of compensation. Property owners will be given time to consider the offer and negotiate should they wish. If an agreement is reached, an acceptance document will be signed, and a closing will take place at a later date. If an agreement is not reached for whatever reason, the state will utilize its power of eminent domain and acquire the property rights through the condemnation process. Now, I understand this has a negative connotation, but many times this is done to keep a project on schedule. If the state elects to pursue eminent domain, the original offer is deposited in the court system, and property owners can continue negotiations or file a formal appeal for a reassessment of damages through the court system. Please note all appeals must be filed within 6 months from the date in which the state files for eminent domain. And that is all I have for tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dennis. Next, I'll talk about some of the utility impacts. As I mentioned earlier, we are working within the existing footprint, so we expect the utility impacts to be minor. One example of a minor utility impact is that there is a utility pole in the proposed parking lot driveway. If the utilities cannot be avoided, they will have to be relocated. We are coordinating with our utilities office to see how to best manage these conflicts. Now I'll take a few seconds and talk about the project construction. We anticipate that construction will start in the spring of 2023. Construction should be completed by the fall of the same year. The contractor will be required to maintain and protect traffic during construction. The contractor will also be required to provide business and pedestrian access. Occasional night work may be required for the contractor to reconstruct the roadway. We do not expect any roadway closures. The intersection should be operational throughout construction. The construction staging plans will be completed in the final design phase of the project. This slide shows the preliminary cost estimate. We are estimating a total of $1,925,000. In terms of schedule, we are shooting for a design completion date of July 13th, 2022. We will advertise the project on August 10th, and we should be starting construction in the spring of 2023. That is the end of my presentation. I'll turn it back over to Mike. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Asib. Thanks, Nick, for that presentation. At this point, we're going to start to get into our question and answer session. I know some of you have already sent us some emails with questions, and I know we have someone on the line listening to voicemails, and they'll be posting those questions in the question and answer dialog box. But also, we do encourage you to use the dialog box. Hopefully, you were able to find it and use it. But if not, please seek out one of the other means. Again, so the project webpage, I'll just kind of go through that for those people listening on the phone that might have come in late. I know there were some individuals that may have got most of the presentation, but might have missed the first couple slides. So the project webpage is http:// the word portal, portal.ct.gov/DOT Stafford, STAFFORD 134-148. Again, the comment period, so you can send us an email, you can send us a voicemail, all the way up till August 12th. We'll be taking those comments, and those comments are very important to us. They give us some insight into some of the complexities out there that we just don't see from not having firsthand knowledge of the area as well as you guys do. So that gives us an insight to be able to better serve the community. The project email is DOT project, PROJECT 134-148 @ct.gov. The voicemail, you can reach us at 860-944-1111. Again, please use the chat window. Also want to mention that there's a survey that you can click on. The link is there. It's also on the webpage. It's https://www.surveymonkey.com/r/V76PRGX. And really the survey is just it's to let us know how we did, our outreach was, and to kind of better serve everyone. So I'm going to sit back and check on the question and answers, and we'll start to get those as they start coming in. Thank you everybody for coming, and stay tuned for some answers to questions.
Okay, Mike, Nick Ivanoff here. Just looking at some of the questions that came in. One of them that was published came in from an email. It says, if bump outs are constructed adjacent to each of the 6 crosswalks shown in the aerial photo, how will the state effectively clear around them during snowstorms? So I believe the state currently plows its state routes within the project limits, and it's the town that maintains the on-street parking areas, and this would continue to be the case after this project is constructed, including in and around the bump outs.
Yeah, Nick, that's absolutely right. Right now, it's our understanding that the town takes care of most of the snow in the parking areas and the sidewalks, and they clear that out. In our discussions with the town, they expressed that they would continue to do that. Also, there is a DOT policy that that states that the DOT will plow the main line, but if we are adding parking, on-street parking as an amenity for the town, that particular town is responsible generally for that snow removal. Thanks, Nick, for bringing that up. And thanks to whoever sent that in.
Looks like we got one from Mandy regarding the parking area that would be established. Will the creation of that parking area have any effect or conflict with the current stonework, clock, and stone retaining wall? Also, how many parking spaces will be eliminated on Main Street due to the bump outs and curb changes? So currently, when we looked at the parking area, we found that we could approximately put in about 11 spaces. We still have to refine our design in this area, and we wouldn't be affecting any of the clock and stonework. It would just be in that gravel area that's adjacent to that. Regarding the amount of on-street parking that's affected, we counted preliminary, and we found that there are about 7 spaces that are on-street that would be affected by the project. And if we put in the parking lot, there would be 11. So there would be a gain of about 4 parking spaces.
Yeah, Nick, and I don't think that accounts for the area in front of the police station either, that we've kind of added and denoted as police parking only. So they have some space to park as well. So I don't think that number even accounts for that. So I think there would be probably about 2 spaces there for the police only. So they wouldn't be taking other spaces up as well. And there's a picture of that there. Thanks
Correct.
for bringing that up.
Yep, and this was the gravel area that I was speaking of. This aerial photo is a little bit dated, so it doesn't show exactly where the clock and the retaining wall is, but when we laid this out, it was adjacent to that. We got our survey back after this aerial photo was generated.
And so, Nick, it's probably good to take the next question. It says, how will I get out of the town hall parking lot if you close the exit? So maybe you can scroll over there and kind of use your cursor to show people, maybe just zoom in just a little bit more, Nick, and show people how they would access the town hall parking lot and kind of what happens there.
Sure. So in terms of circulating around the town hall's parking lot, it's going to be in the same fashion that it is today. There will be a couple of parking spots in this area that will be affected as well. So you would still make a right or a left turn into this parking area, circulate around the same direction that these arrows are going, and then come back out this direction and back out the same way you came in. The only difference being that this island that was present before is kind of occupied by this space now where we're moving the driveway entrance to, and that's to make room for the crosswalk at this location.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. One of the things that we needed to do is provide an area far enough away from that circulatory roadway where we could cross pedestrians. A lot of pedestrian activity out here. A lot of people going to the town hall, the police station, and the shops up and down Main Street. So pedestrian crossing and activity was one of our major points of interest of the design team. So thanks, Nick, for bringing it up. So there's another question. It says, is it possible to find parking off Main Street? I fear that paving the vacant lot for a parking lot misses a great opportunity to create more climate-friendly green space downtown that would attract people. Yeah, so that's a great question, right? So one of the things that we had talked about with the town, and one of the things the town brought up explicitly was the loss of parking being a major problem. And so our showing of the 11 public parking spots that could be created by that lot was really just an idea to mitigate against the loss, right? We knew we needed to adjust curb lines and take parking out of the circulatory roadway and the roundabout, just because it's just really not operationally good. And we would be losing spaces in those areas. And so we looked at that vacant lot at town property there as a potential, mitigation for it. That doesn't mean that we have to do that. There could be other ways to go about this. We do know that the town does have parking near the gas station on the south of the river. Maybe there's something that could be done there, but these are things that we can be working with the town on. What I can't do is I can't take property from a private owner and make that parking. So I can't go and do that. But I can use existing town spaces or existing area that the town has access to make improvements. We can kind of do some of that and work with the town to come up with other parking areas if the people don't believe that what we have shown with the new parking area works for the town, right? If it doesn't work for the townspeople, we wouldn't want to do it. That's why these plans are 30%. We're coming to you with ideas, and if our ideas aren't working for you, we want to know how we can change them and still meet the purpose and need of the project. So thank you for that question. Nick, is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
Nope, I think you about covered it. I did notice that we got another question. Will the sidewalk remain in front of Town Hall in its current configuration? The answer to that would be yes. We're going to extend the sidewalk down a little bit further, closer towards where the parking lot is, and we're going to be putting the crosswalk across River Road here, and that's to really locate the crosswalk at the best location for the roundabout and move the crosswalk prior to the yield point for drivers. But in terms of the sidewalk that's in this location, this would be replaced in kind, and pedestrians will still have this space to move around. So thank you for your question.
And Nick, while we're on that conversation, what can you just kind of show us a little bit as you move south down Route 32, but that sidewalk there, it was kind of hard to see in the presentation. Can you just kind of just show people where we're extending sidewalk and where we have existing sidewalk out there?
Yep. So the sidewalk didn't exist on this side of the bridge currently. There was a request from the town that if we could retrofit the bridge with the sidewalk, and we coordinated with our bridge engineers. We found that the bridge itself was structurally able to support a sidewalk at this location. There are some locations where there'll be a raised sidewalk on top of some 6-inch curbing. This would be closer to the bridge. And there's other areas where the sidewalk would almost be flush with the pavement, and that's to accommodate some of the driveways that are in this area. There was a desire to bring it all the way down towards the gas station or former gas station at this location, so this is where we brought it to. The other sidewalk on the opposite side of the road looked like it was in somewhat rough condition, so we were upgrading this as well and resurfacing it.
Yep, that's right, Nick.
And we'll be providing connections to these sidewalks on both sides, in front of the police station and around, similar to how they are today.
So Nick, there's a question about how many property owners will potentially be affected by right-of-way acquisitions for this project. Not many, right?
No, our rights-of-way involvement on this project is very minimal. The only potential acquisitions would be a small sliver that's needed to accommodate the curb line at this location. We're working with the town on that. There's some locations over here where the sidewalk crosses over the right-of-way line. We're coordinating with the town, and possibly an easement to put an impact attenuator or some type of railing device in front of this area, just to protect the bridge abutment. These are still details that we're working out. But in terms of all other properties in this area, Sidewalk amendments would mostly likely be done as rights, and we would coordinate with those property owners, but there wouldn't be any easements for this work or.
Nick, you still there? No, we may have lost Nick. Okay, so like Nick was saying, I do not believe there's very many, if any, rights-of-way
I don't know what
impacts.
that means.
So hang on while we address some technical difficulties.
Okay.
All right, so there's a question about, it says, why do we need new sidewalk from City Hall to the gas station? Gas station's been closed for 2 years. And so what we'd like to do is we like to kind of provide sidewalk connections the best that we can. That property could be developed at another time. And so under our project, we feel, we can provide those sidewalk connections at a relatively low cost. It's probably the best time to do now. So we're going to do that. There's a question that says, you mentioned an analysis of a full traffic light that you wish to install. You say it will not adversely affect the flow of traffic through the Rotary. Could you please discuss this? Yep. So with us today, we have Mike Chachakis. He's a traffic engineer that is responsible for, is one of the traffic engineers responsible for looking at that. And really what it comes down to is it's a project that would potentially replace the existing traffic rail crossing equipment, which is, he'll tell you, is out of date and it is in dire need of an upgrade. And one of the options that they're looking at is that being a full actuated signal. And that particular signal would be under a separate project. But we wanted to make sure that the roundabout would work with either the existing signal equipment and any proposed signal equipment. And what Mike did is he'll tell you that it does work with both scenarios. And Mike, are you able to unmute and talk?
Hey, Mike. Yeah, I can talk for a little bit about the potential signal that we may be putting in there separately. So if we do the signal, we don't want it to affect the roundabout, obviously, because backups into the roundabout can lock up a roundabout pretty quickly. So looking at that signal, we looked at future volumes. We went out to 2040 projected volumes to see what would happen with it. And because it's a fully actuated signal, which means that it'll rest in green on Main Street until someone from Spring Street, or if there's a parking lot there, someone coming out of the parking lot would call in their phase and change the signal on Main Street to red and give themselves the green light. We wanted to make sure that when that happens, that there wouldn't be any kind of backups into the roundabout. So from what we've found, that is that they're 90, our 95th percentile cues are that it won't affect the roundabout. And to also help prevent that further, there is this type of detection called force-off detection, so that if there is a backup that gets close to the roundabout, it can kick out of a phase that it's in, bring on the Main Street green. So we know that the signal's kind of close to a roundabout, and we tend to try to avoid that. But in this area, the signal may be needed there for an upgrade from the beacon. That's kind of the length of our analysis of it. It also does include the driveway there, the truck driveway, as part of the analysis too. So it accounts for the parking lot, Spring Street, that driveway, and the Main Street. And we haven't found any issues with the queuing so far.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. I hope that answered the question about that. We have had some questions about parking in front of the church. And we do realize that could cause some inconvenience for access to the church and extending the walk from a parking space right in front to a little bit further. We do have to keep the circulatory roadway clear of parking. It's a major operational improvement that it's done, and one of the purposes of doing the project and modernizing the roundabout But what I can say that we will do is we'll plan to meet with the church to see what we can do to kind of limit the impact the best that we can. Like maybe we can shift the crosswalk right next to the church property to the right just a little bit, and maybe get an extra parking space there. We can look to see what we can do. Maybe there's some things that we can do in and around to make that function a bit better. There are some other questions about the church parking in front of it that we're going to need to talk to the parish about. So that's something that we're going to have to handle as we move on, if we move on into final design. There was a question about construction staging. It says, is there a location that is being considered for a construction staging area? Will that affect any current businesses or occupied properties? What I can say right now is that construction staging, in terms of like lay down areas, we have not, right? We don't typically in design for a project like this, we will require the contractor to coordinate with our district construction staff who's administering the job to coordinate lay down areas and where they're going to put materials, store equipment, store machinery for the job. So we haven't looked at that. But what we do look at is constructability. And as Steve mentioned in the presentation, that we do believe this job to be able to be built and the intersection open the entire time. We don't expect it to be closed. We shouldn't have to detour traffic. We may have some alternating one-way traffic at times during construction. We may have some night work for paving or some line striping operations that need to be done when there's very, very low volumes. But for the most part, we fully expect to be working within the existing footprint. A lot of our work is just adjusting curb lines where we have roadway footprint out there already, which is great. So we don't have to, take property to shift roadways and the like. So the stage construction shouldn't be super complicated, but we're going to have to just, figure out how to get from East Main Street and then head west down Route 190 and how trucks are going to make those turns and the like. So we usually take just those details in final design. So we had a question from email about, has additional green space been considered for the empty lot on Main Street? And it said renovate the current public lot near the Eagle Mart for additional parking. Like I mentioned before, if the idea to put parking there is for mitigating against loss of parking. It was an easy one for us, low hanging fruit, where we see an empty lot and we can put parking there. But if there's a lot of opposition to that and they're looking for other areas, we can look. But we're trying to balance the needs of all users in the area, and that sometimes can get tricky. And so we'll be coordinating with the town on how to best proceed with mitigation for loss of parking. Joan asks, what factors were considered in creating parking in the vacant lot? Will this present a real problem when a car pulls onto Main Street? Right, so it could present a problem, but what we're hoping is that 11 parking spaces or less maybe, aren't really going to cause that much of a problem. That's the hope, but like I said, we're going to coordinate with the town to see what's best for the community, and then we'll also look to make sure that we have proper sight lines going into and out of parking lots. We'll coordinate with our traffic office to make sure that the intersection can handle that additional volume of cars accessing at that point to make sure everything's safe. Like I said, we're at 30% right now. These comments are very important to us, and they can kind of help guide the project into how it looks moving forward. Becky says, if enough townspeople express that they are against the new parking lot, could we defeat the proposal? Absolutely. So something that we're doing is we're spending public money on a project, and if there's not support for a particular aspect of it, that is not ancillary to to meeting the purpose of the job, then we don't necessarily need to do it. One of the things the town brought to us was the loss of parking would be a major point of contention for the people, and so maybe it is, but and maybe it isn't. And we can continue to look for other mitigating areas. And like I said, this was just one idea. Donna writes, would the empty lot remain owned by the town of Stafford, and is the area, and if that area is paved by the state of Connecticut as indicated in this project? Yes, this would be town property. It would be maintained by the town. The town would be required to do snow removal. We would just be able to build it under our project using state funds. Frank mentions the town actually requests this project, and if so, who initiated it? Is this a done deal? So this is a state initiated project. So the state identified the intersection as having some deficiencies. As Nick mentioned early on, if you look at how a roundabout should function, the roundabout in the center of Stafford did not function as it best it could, and by moving the curb lines around and changing where the pedestrians cross, we make some incredible improvements as Nick showed between the two roundabouts. And so, is this a done deal? No, this isn't a done deal. We come to the public to present a project. We need public support in order to move forward, as well as town support. And we were able to restripe the roadway last summer, and we feel that when the lines are followed, we have an incredible improvement in terms of traffic operations. The vehicles are moving much slower through the roundabout. They are less likely to heading north on Route 32. You're less likely to blow right through the intersection. You're slowing down, you're yielding, and it's functioning much better. And so we believe that with these next layer of improvements, it really solidifies the safety and operational improvement that's gained by this project. And I want to also mention that that I believe the town did ask us to look at the roundabout or the rotary and the potential to upgrade to a roundabout. One of the reasons I forgot this when I was giving my answer, but Nick mentioned it earlier. The police building was actually getting hit by trucks, and the bollard was installed. I've seen personally myself sitting out there, a video of a truck hitting the bollard and that protects the utility pole. And the need for the extension of the curb line to be able to push those heavy trucks over north away from the police station is needed. That curb line improvements needed to kind of move them over. And so that's one of the other important factors about why this job was initiated. There's a question here. I think we just need to kind of close the loop again. The bump outs would require town snow removal, and that's existing to the patterns that's out there now. The town removes snow from the parking areas and the sidewalks, and so the town indicated they would continue to do that, after a snowstorm. Mandy asks, will there be a garden area that surrounds the fountain, or will that all be concrete truck apron? Seaver, Nick, can you bring up the plan again? Around the center island is there's a concrete truck apron that's there. That's basically, if you look out there now, the yellow paint would be the truck apron. And so in the center of the roundabout is the fountain. It's kind of offset. The fountain's historical, and so we're not kind of allowed to kind of move it. But that red area right now that we're showing hardscape, that could become planted, right? So some of these darker red areas They could become planted. It's, our first shot at it is hardscape. The town would have to buy up on maintaining the hardscaped areas, but then they would also have to buy up on maintaining the planted areas as well, so the DOT would not want to have to come out and maintain those on a regular basis. So in terms of what the final treatment is, immediately inside the truck apron, we can continue to have those conversations with the town if the townspeople are looking for something different. But right now, it's shown to be hardscape. Becky asks if I have a mock-up of what the fountain will look like from the street view with the stamped concrete and the concrete truck apron around it. I do not. We didn't, as a part of this presentation, prepare a visual. That's something that we can work with the town on in terms of what the final treatment would look like. That's a pretty good idea, Becky. And I do look forward to working with the town to what the final touches of this project is, assuming it moves forward. So we have a phone call, a voicemail from a business owner in the area where they're concerned of where the right-of-way conflicts and how is it going to affect parking where it's already restricted. And so the right now, the only right-of-way acquisition that we believe we have is to kind of clean up. It's really, I wouldn't even call it a right-of-way acquisition. It's more or less it's cleaning up a deficiency out there where we have roadway pavement on town of Stafford property. And so it's more of a technicality. Everywhere else in the project limits, we really don't believe to have much rights-of-way involvement. We may be asking property owners a right to construct a sidewalk on their, a right to reconstruct an existing sidewalk on their property, but that's really just to kind of clean things up and make sure that the whole community looks like it has a complete package, a complete project when everybody's done and out of here. Will it affect your parking? I guess I would have to know exactly where your business was and your parking is. But what I can urge you to do is, hopefully in your voicemail, you left your contact information, and either myself or someone from my team can get back to you with an answer, and we can even meet with you out in the field to explain to you where curb lines are going to be pushed out. For the most part, between Spring Street and the roundabout, the parking situation will remain the same, with the exception of immediately in front of the church and then immediately in front of the town hall. And I'm not even certain that those are legal parking spaces in front of the town hall. But those are areas where the curb lines have been adjusted, is in the immediate area of the roundabout. Everywhere else, they're almost in the exact same location, if not the same. There was a question that said, have you spent time watching actual traffic, especially truck traffic passing through this area? Absolutely. I myself, I live in Summers. I go through this area quite a bit. I spend a lot of time out there watching trucks. One of the purposes of putting the striping out there was to ensure that we could get trucks through there. And so my team went to Levesque Trucking up in Munson. They often are headed through this area with very large equipment. They went and they measured up their vehicles. They brought that measurement back and they ran a simulation using the vehicles that Levesque uses, the low boys coming through, to make sure that they could make it, because this is a very tight roundabout. I mean, let's be honest here. And we wanted to make sure that we can get trucks through here in all directions. And we believe that we have. It's one of the reasons why the splitter islands are so small, because we have these big trucks that we have to get through here, and we just don't have the roadway width to have the size splitter islands that we'd like to have in a roundabout. But I will say we have watched trucks, and one of the things that we see the trucks failing to do is they don't, if they're headed down, especially Route 190 headed east and trying to take a right-hand turn onto 32 headed south, they start too close to the police station, and then they end up cutting it short. And so what this does is it shifts those trucks as far north as we possibly can on Route 190 before they make that right-hand sweeping turn. And then, with this configuration, we believe they used with the truck apron and the new geometry. We believe those trucks, including those big trucks on from Levesque and the other trucking industries out here, we believe that they should be able to make it through without too much trouble. And then the striping is out there now is really kind of solidified our belief in that. So going along with my last point, the next question says tractor trailer trucks traveling on East Main Street have had difficulties in one case knocked down the flagpole at the end of the current island. Seen trucks going eastward on East Main Street and having difficulties too. So it's just like the last question. So we believe that we've modeled trucks coming through here, both on the computer and been able to kind of do it in real life with the new striping pattern out there. And then coordinating the trucking industry that uses this area on a daily basis. And we have, like I said, high confidence that that the trucks will be able to kind of get through here even better than they do now. How will the sight lines for the left-hand turn coming from Furnace Avenue be impacted by the project? I don't believe they're impacted. Nick, are you back on here?
Yep, I'm still here.
Can you comment on this at all?
Left turns from Furnace Avenue. I'm assuming that you mean Furnace Avenue onto East Main Street. I don't think they'll be affected at all. It's kind of beyond the limits of our project. If you mean from Furnace through the roundabout, I still don't think that they'll be affected either. Most of the construction that we're doing through this area, there's no real vertical elements that we're moving or changing in this area with the exception of curb line.
Yeah, that's what I thought too, Nick. I just want to make sure I understood the question right. Yes, Nick's absolutely right. I don't believe the sightlines would be impacted. So one question says the truck apron in the proposed layout that you're showing does not seem to be the same shape as what you have painted on the pavement. The yellow striping seems more parabolic than the round concrete truck apron shown on the layout. Nick, is that true? Is our layout in the field just a little bit different? I believe it might be.
I believe what we sent over was essentially the same as what we had modeled for this. Maybe it looks a little bit different in this presentation because you can't quite see where the shoulder line on the circulatory roadway is going to be. So that's going to be about 2 feet off of where this where the concrete part starts. So that might look a little bit different. It is sort of parabolic in just that it's a little off center, and our truck apron does vary from, I believe, 12 feet down in this area up to 18 just to allow that left turn movement from River Road onto Main Street. So that's why that's kind of in that shape, but it should be pretty close to what we're showing on the screen today.
Thanks, Nick. There's a comment from Frank. Frank's saying that there's never been a problem with the Rotary when the cars park in front of the church. There's nothing that can help the issue. So we appreciate the comment, Frank. That's one of the things that we just don't have, but we don't have that firsthand knowledge. I live near the area. I'm not going through this area on a daily basis like I'm sure you are. And so, we appreciate that firsthand knowledge. And like I mentioned before, we're going to coordinate with the church to see, what, if anything, we can do to kind of keep parking out of there, but keep access to the church as the best we can. And one of the things I want to mention too is that we'll also be working with the town and the town staff on the parking issue as well, like I mentioned before. So there's a question that says, how will traffic be kept from using the Christopher Allen Bridge on Spring Street since the bridge is historic and is now in need of repair? added traffic over that bridge is a cause for concern because of possibility of increased deterioration? It's a good question. I don't think there's anything that's stopping them from doing that today. And I believe that that's a private road headed towards that bridge. You zoom out a little bit, right? And I don't think there's anything stopping from people doing that today. Mike, is there anything that you guys do in traffic design to limit people? Is there anything that we can that we would want to do if there was an issue with the bridge? I'm assuming the town, this would be a town bridge, would post it.
I mean, we could look into it and see if there's something we could do, but being that that's part of the roadway network, people could, I mean, outside of restricting traffic entirely from using it, people are going to go where they're going to go. But we could maybe think of something, maybe a separate signing or something to try to encourage to stay on River Road and Main Street. But we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see if it's something we could do.
I think you're right, Mike. I mean, we're not changing a configuration out here. That's kind of an existing way that people drive or don't drive. But well, we appreciate the comment. Donna writes, are the bump outs completely hardscape or are they filled with soil or stamped concrete to match the sidewalks or paved? So right now, Donna, the sidewalks are expected to be paved, or no, I'm sorry, paved. There'd be stamped concrete, the same material as the sidewalk, and so it's anticipated to be an extension of the sidewalk with an ADA compliant pedestrian ramp. And so right now we have no provisions to make them with soil. Like I mentioned before, those final details we can discuss with the town to do something different in those areas. And I encourage anyone, to talk to the town if they have comments, if they have desires for what these areas should look like. And as mentioned, these final details we'll be working with town staff. And they would have to, like I said, the town would have to sign off on an agreement to maintain whatever treatment we have for these areas, whether they're sidewalk areas, stamped concrete, or if it is determined to have them planted, the town would have to sign off on the maintenance of whatever it is. We had an email question that says, could no parking signs clearly demarcated serve the same purpose as bump outs to provide sufficient visibility of pedestrians standing in the crosswalk without the added concerns of special snow management? So it could get some of the benefits, but you're not going to be able to get all the benefits. As the Steve showed in his presentation, is you're going to have a longer cross time, right? So your crossing time is going to be calculated from the curb line, and if you're just using paint, you're not going to get that short crossing, that benefit of the bump out. Also, you're not going to get the benefit of having a raised up area, of having a pedestrian stand on top of a curb and sidewalk that's not in the paved black roadway, albeit maybe striping, but that pedestrian is going to feel a lot more comfortable standing on that bump out than I believe it would, and I know I would, standing in the road with some striping protecting me. So that's really the benefit of the bump outs, as Steve mentioned. The snow management thing, you're absolutely right. It's easier for snow management if that's flushed. Whoever's maintaining it can just plow it along, but you're not going to get the same benefit as you would with the raised bump out. Joan mentions that the plan shows no parking in front of the town hall, and if the problem is the roof being hit a couple of times, then fix that issue and don't mess with everything else. So Joan, when we look at these projects, we look at if we look at an intersection, we look at kind of everything. And really what we saw was an operational issue with the way that the roundabout was functioning. And the everything else, I would say that everything in the immediate vicinity of the roundabout is something that we lost the screen. In the immediate vicinity of the roundabout is something that we are, need to fix in terms of operations, right? By providing the curvature, like Nick mentioned, it was lacking here. The bump outs up Main Street, that was something that we looked at when we're looking at our area. We do a bicycle and pedestrian needs assessment when we look at a project, and that came up as part of that review. And it said, we have lots of pedestrian traffic on Main Street. There has been a pedestrian who was hit crossing Main Street. How can we fix that? We can fix it pretty simply and for pretty much a low cost, without too much impact, by providing these bump outs. And so that was something that we were proposing. Doesn't mean it's something we have to do if there's a lot of opposition towards that.
Hey, Mike, just to kind of add to what you said, at this location where the on-street parking is, and our reasons for including that geometry at this location was more than just doing what was needed in order to protect the roof of the police building, but there's really a lot of near misses out here. Our coordination with the town and with the local police has indicated that there's a lot of honking that goes on here, and that's likely because somebody is coming from River Road, they're proceeding straight, maybe they missed the yield sign and they just shoot straight through the intersection, and this person who is coming from Main Street, who actually has the right of way, has to slam on their brakes and kind of give way to this person who's just kind of going straight through. And that does lead to the potential for somebody to get rear-ended when they make that movement. Or there's also the potential for sort of like a T-bone crash to occur here as well. So really, we wanted to put in that geometry to slow down and control drivers, and just letting the driver who has the right of way know that they're the one who has it, which is the person in the circulatory road.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Thanks for that clarification. There was another question from email about the speed limit is not mentioned in the design details of the project. So our members can attest that traffic generally does not abide by the current 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on Main Street. What speed limit we posted for the roundabout proper and for the entry and exit roadways? So I can say that we're not changing any of the speed limits out here. Nick, I believe we don't sign, and Nick and Mike Chachakis, feel free to chime in, but I don't believe we're going to be posting any signs for a different speed limit within the roundabout. Is that correct?
I don't mean to speak for Mike, but I think that's true. We generally don't put up a sign to say specifically what the speed limit is in the middle of the intersection. The speed limit on the approach legs itself will remain unchanged. And as I recall, if there's a request for the speed limit to be changed on a particular road, that's something that the town would have to request through our traffic division.
And the fastest path, Nick, for the roundabout was like 22, 23 miles per hour, right?
Right. So something that we do with our projects, and when we're trying to figure out what geometry a roundabout needs, we really look at how a driver could pass through the intersection taking the shortest, easiest path. And we call that our fastest path analysis. And what we found with the geometry that we put in here is it's really going to be less than 25 miles per hour. The curbs that we're putting in and the deflection that we're generating just really does a good job slowing down drivers, and it doesn't allow them to cheat the way that a simple pavement marking would.
Yeah, absolutely right. Thanks, Nick. The next question is, do the town and the state collaborate to decide on speed limits through Main Street and the roundabout? So I think the last question kind of answers that. So we're not gonna, if the town wants to request the lower speed limit, they would do that through the state. But like I said, we're gonna be maintaining what we have there through Main Street. Why do you have a crosswalk ending in the area where police cars come and go? Yeah, not ideal, where we're showing the crosswalk there, but what we understand is, people are gonna cross at the shortest distance between 2 points. And we know that the police cars would be coming and going in that police parking area, but the frequency would be, hopefully would not be, you know, like a commercial driveway, right? So, there are only a few police cars that are going to be able to park in this area. We know that we have an existing crosswalk here, and so this is the best place that we felt we could put a crosswalk at this location. Though I do believe it still needs a little bit of tweaking, and so some of the conversations that we're going to have with the church, the town, the continued conversations with the town and police department, to be able to kind of best fit that crosswalk in, because we know people are going to cross in that vicinity. They're not going to, cross River Road and then come back across with Furnace Avenue to get to the church. They're going to cross, the shortest distance between the 2 points. And so we're trying to find the best spot to do that there. It is a tricky spot. There was another question about the parking area. I believe that we answered that before, but in case anybody came in late, the question was about the gravel parking lot and 11 space proposal. Could we be doing that somewhere else? And my answer was sure. This was the 11 public parking spots was mitigation for the loss of parking along Main Street from the extension of the curb lines. And this was the state's first shot at trying to get that parking loss mitigated. We're going to continue to work with the town in final design to come up with other mitigation possibilities. And we'll work with them to make a decision as to what we ultimately would do, assuming this project continues to move into final design. And again, there were 7 parking spaces that were lost in total, and 11 added on the municipal lot. So it's a net of 4 gained. We believe we have 4 gained in the current proposal here. We may have some more work to do and sharpen our pencils to see what else we could be doing, depending upon how the rest of the meeting goes. There was a question about snow removal of the parking lot. The town would have to assume snow removal of that parking lot. The state would assume the cost of the install, but the town would be on the hook for all maintenance. Could a traffic light be installed to allow for easy pullout? So I don't know if the traffic light would be warranted for that location, but it may be warranted in conjunction with Spring Street. I'd have to ask Mike Chachakis of traffic to take a look at that. And like we mentioned earlier, there is a separate project to upgrade the signal equipment at Spring Street for the rail crossing, and a full signal is being looked at as one alternative there. And so that may ultimately end up being a part of that design. We'll have to kind of wait and see how that project progresses. There was an email about will any parking spaces be lost in front of the ice cream shop, ice cream depot, barber shop, or gift shop. I believe that the parking in that area remains the same as it does today with the striping. We basically, when we went out and striped, we striped this configuration out there. One thing I will mention is that darker red area in front of that building. So there is a bit more hardscape being proposed in that area as we're shifting the roadway, the center line of the roadway and the actual footprint that we need to the north, so that trucks can better make that right-hand turn around the police building and so that they don't conflict with it. With the utility pole there, giving them a little bit more space to make that right-hand turn. And so when we shifted everything to the north to get that, we were able to kind of maintain that on-street parking and get some more hardscape up there in that area, removing some of that pavement width that's not necessary, that whole stretch there. And there's a question from email. It says, will a hearse be able to park by the Congregational Church during a funeral service? So like I mentioned earlier, we're going to have to coordinate with the church to see exactly what their needs are and sort of operational needs are, and see how we can best accommodate moving forward. So probably tomorrow morning to sometime early next week, we'll probably be trying to reach out to somebody at the Congregational Church to see how we can how they function and how we can best serve them. So I just wanted to take a moment to remind everybody how to that maybe somebody came in late and didn't get a chance to see the presentation, or didn't get a chance to see how to kind of communicate with us, as many of you have, and we really appreciate all those comments and questions. They can visit the project webpage, and that's http://portal portal.ct.gov/DOT Stafford STAFFORD 134-148. And on that website, you'll be able to do things like find the project email. You'll be able to, I don't think the project voicemail will be open for 2 weeks, but does anybody know if the project voicemail, Mez, do you know if the project voicemail is open for 2 weeks?
I'm not sure.
So at the very least, the email will be open for 2 weeks for you to be able to submit comments. That email address is dotproject134-148@ct.gov.
Mike, I'm sorry. Yeah. Now I just remembered. Yes, you can leave a voicemail up to 2 weeks until the due date. Just make sure to include the project number, because we have other projects, so sometimes it gets confusing. What question goes to what project? So, yep.
Thanks, Mez. And then lastly, there's the chat window. Many of you use the chat window, but if anybody is coming in late, the chat window, you can use a question and answer tab on the top of my screen. Maybe it's somewhere else on your screen, but in there you can write a chat to us, and we'll try to provide an answer. And the DOT team, will remain on if any more questions come in. If there's anything specific that you'd like us to kind of show you and look at on the screen, be specific in your question, and we'll do the best out that we can.
Mike, can you talk a little bit about the survey, and if you can?
Yep. So again, on the project website, there's a link to a SurveyMonkey survey. Basically, what we're looking for is some feedback on how we did on public outreach, how this virtual platform was portrayed to you, and if you got the information out to you well, if our outreach was good. And so if you could, please visit the project website and you can see the survey. For anyone listening on the phone, that website is https://www.surveymonkey.com/r/B76PRGX. And I think a link to the survey has also been posted into the announcements on the question and answer session. Is that true?
That's correct, Mike.
So Mandy has a question about the funding for this project. Has the funding been secured, or does it still need to be awarded? So this project is anticipated to use both state and federal funding. So right now, our design phase is funded. The next step would be to get approval of the design in terms of the the design concept, right? The 30% design, and approval would be getting public support, town support, meeting all our design would meet all our environmental requirements under the National Environmental Policy Act, under NEPA, and get those sign-offs, and then have an internal approval of the design by DOT staff. And at that point, then the construction funds would be obligated for a particular fiscal year. So to answer your question, and it's kind of complicated. So half of the funding, I guess, is secured, the design half, and we would be securing the construction half with approval of the project's design. And for any of you, I noticed a few people have dropped off, so I wanted to at least thank those of you that have been here and have listened and asked questions. All the questions have been fantastic, and we appreciate every single one of the questions, the comments. It's giving us that insight to what's going on the ground that we don't necessarily have because we don't live in the town and don't have knowledge of how certain spaces are being used every day. It's our job to come up with something that works well for the community, and your comments and your questions only help us be able to do that better. There was an email question asking if the town is going to be upgrading any utilities during this project. Are any utility upgrades necessary? And so I don't mean to speak for on behalf of the town, but I can speak on behalf of the utility process that goes along with a project of this magnitude on state routes, is that we are in constant coordination with utilities in terms of public utilities like Eversource, electric and gas, water company, and then town facilities like sewer facilities in the area as well. And we are always trying to accommodate as best that we can the utility upgrades when we're doing things. So the last thing we want to do is complete our project, pave the road, and 6 months later a utility cut into the road and replace a water line or a gas line, because then we're left with a scar on our brand new paved road. So what we do is we coordinate with every one of those companies and ask them, do they have any projects planned in the area? Can they coordinate project schedules so they get in before we do our construction? At times when we have projects where we require significant utility relocations, we can kind of work with them and help pay for certain aspects of utility relocation or upgrade. In this particular project, like Steve mentioned, there's really not much in line for existing utility relocations that the state needs to do in order to accommodate the project. But there are some minor ones, and like I said, we are continuing to coordinate with the town, and would expect if they have anything, they would bring them up to us. So one of the questions that just came in, I'll just kind of summarize it, is just because it was kind of personal. Somebody asked for somebody was asking if we could reach out to them. They provided their contact information to reach out to them so we can answer any questions that a specific business owner has that has a business on Main Street, and I'm curious about how our project would affect them personally. And so I would encourage any of you that has a business or has a specific concern about their own property to provide their information in an email or in the chat. We see the chat before it gets published, so we can chat with you personally, or leave a voicemail to any of us, and we will get back to you, and we'll hold a personal meeting with you out in the field if that's the best course of action. If we're not comfortable doing it in the field, we can do it virtually in a setting like this where we can share screens, and we can do it over, we use MS Teams, but we can also do Zoom if that's something you're more comfortable with. But in order for us to do that, please reach out if you have specific concerns. I know some other property owners are doing that. They're reaching out to the design team through email right now, giving phone numbers and ways to contact you. We're more than happy to do that if that's something that you guys are interested in. So at this time, I'm not seeing any new questions coming in. I know my team is, some of them probably came in a while ago and they sorted through a lot. So that's kind of why this took a little while to get through. I appreciate everyone's patience and their questions and their comments as we went through this. We appreciate everyone doing this virtually. I wish I was out at the town hall right now, giving this presentation in person. I hope that I can again soon. I would much prefer that. Obviously, we had some technical issues earlier where Nick lost the call, and I wish that wouldn't happen. But I do appreciate everyone's comments, questions. I'm going to encourage everyone to go to the project webpage, to email us, to call in, to go into the survey. The DOT staff will probably hang out for maybe another 5 or so minutes if more questions come in. But at this point, I think that I think it's an appropriate time to say our thank yous and that we appreciate everything that that we've had tonight. We appreciate. Thank you, everybody. We got an email question that says, "Can the flagpole at the start of excuse me, East Main Street be replaced?" At the start of East Main Street, the flagpole there, we don't have any proposed work, so that would be outside of our project limits. So at this point, we would not be planning to replace the flagpole. Again, thank you everybody for attending tonight's meeting. I think this went very well with the one technical issue that we did have. And that was unexpected. So thanks for having patience dealing with us then. Thank you for all your questions and comments and insight. It's really gonna, assuming the project moves forward, I think it's really gonna help bolster the success of the project and how it positively impacts the community. Thank you, everyone.